Okay. So, it was a morning to sleep in, yes? Rain was quite a gift. For pollen sufferers such as myself, it's a welcome relief. So I'm going to talk this morning. I'm going to offer a reading from one of our ancient masters, ancient worthies, named, I'm probably close to spelling, but apparently it's pronounced Hongzhi, so we're going to go with it. So I just want to put that out there. And then, so what I'm going to do to begin, let me shake it up here a bit, is I want to invite you to drop into sort of an imaginal space. You know, we talk about being in the present moment, but for the next few minutes, we're going to go somewhere else, intentionally. So perhaps imagine yourself as you can do anything you want, but I'm just going to offer up an example. Imagine yourself as a silk root trader in the mid-12th century of the Common Era. So the silk routes ran generally from the Eastern Mediterranean to South Asia. And so you could be from any place along that route, trading and learning, exchanging news, spiritual teachings. Your group has been traveling along the route in China, stopping at trading centers for the past several weeks, selling and trading silks, pottery, probably precious gems, all kinds of things. Now, after one such day, it is time to settle in for the night. As you prepare to camp, one of the group shares that there is a monastery nearby where an eminent Buddhist teacher lives and would be interested in what he has to say. Or perhaps somewhere along the way, one of the group has obtained a snippet of a teaching from this teacher and wishes to offer it as a respite from the long day of trading and traveling. However this teaching comes to the group, they will receive a teaching from the Chan master known as Hongzhi. The bright, boundless field. The field of boundless emptiness is what exists from the very beginning. You must purify, cure, grind down, or brush away all the tendencies you have fabricated into apparent habits. Then you can reside in the clear circle of brightness. Utter emptiness has no image. Upright independence does not rely on anything. Just expand and illuminate the original truth, unconcerned by external conditions. Accordingly, we are told to realize that not a single thing exists. In this field, birth and death do not appear. The deep source, transparent down to the bottom, can radiantly shine and respond unencumbered to each speck of dust without becoming its partner. The subtlety of seeing and hearing transcends mere colors and sounds. The whole affair functions without leaving traces and mirrors, without obscurations. Very naturally, mind and dharmas emerge and harmonize. An ancient one said that non-mind enacts and fulfills the way of non-mind. Enacting and fulfilling the way of non-mind, finally you can rest. Proceeding as you are able to guide the assembly, with thoughts clear, sitting silently, wander into the center of the circle of wonder. This is how you must penetrate and study. And so the reader offered it again. the bright, boundless field. The field of boundless emptiness is what exists from the very beginning. You must purify, cure, grind down, or brush away all the tendencies you have fabricated into apparent habits. Then you can reside in the clear circle of brightness. Utter emptiness has no image. Upright independence does not rely on anything. Just expand and illuminate the original truth, unconcerned by external conditions. Accordingly, we are told to realize that not a single thing exists. In this field, birth and death do not appear. The deep source, transparent down to the bottom, can radiantly shine and respond unencumbered to each speck of dust without becoming its partner. The subtlety of seeing and hearing transcends mere colors and sounds. The whole affair functions without leaving traces and mirrors without obscurations. Very naturally, mind and dharmas emerge and harmonize. An ancient said that non-mind exists and fulfills the way of non-mind. Enacting and fulfilling the way of non-mind, finally, you can rest. Proceeding, you are able to guide the assembly. With thoughts clear, sitting silently, wander into the center of the circle of wonder. This is how you must penetrate and study. So from that imaginary campfire of traders, or wherever you have placed yourself, what calls out to you? Words, phrases, images, questions. How might these ancient beings have responded to this, not knowing anything about anything? You can just call out popcorn style if you like, whatever's on your mind, and we'll just sit until someone speaks.
Could they really not have known anything about anything?
Don't know.
They must
I don't know.
have known something about
Would they really not have known anything about anything? I don't know. Maybe they just didn't know Dharma, or maybe they didn't know Hongzhi. I don't know.
great faith for you.
Great bright field. Yes. So, what comes into your mind hearing those words? So, other words, maybe phrases from the passage, images, questions.
The phrase grind down.
Grind down. Yeah,
An offering of an orange.
Pardon me?
An offering of an orange.
An offering of an orange. Yeah. Yeah. I would imagine that an orange would have been very exotic in that context. It's like somebody just pulls it out. Like, what is that? You know? You imagine the first time seeing one? Like, what would that have been like to see an orange for the very first time as an adult? Not as a child, but as an adult.
Almost as good as
Almost as good as tasting it. Yeah. Yeah.
wonderment.
Wonderment?
Wasn't it one?
Wonderment, yes, it was great circle of wonder.
It's funny that you ask what comes into mind because the phrase enacting the way of non-mind, finally you can rest, is the thing that resonated the most with me. It felt like comforting.
Yeah. Yeah, enacting the way of non-mind, finally you can rest.
Can you speak to the dust again?
Pardon me?
Can you speak about the dust again?
Yes. The deep source, transparent down to the bottom, can radiantly shine and respond unencumbered to each speck of dust without becoming its partner.
Innermost, most open space. I don't know why that came to my
Innermost, most
yeah,
open
like
space.
10 times it came. It was like very open. Innermost.
Innermost, most open space.
It's like I feel a field that was just endlessly open and
Yeah. I think when you say that, I think of a meadow, like a really wide meadow, where when you kind of see the tall grasses blowing in the wind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and everything had kind of like a light fire to it.
Yeah,
There's something coming off of it.
Light fire, yeah.
The thing I've been thinking about was we were saying about the grinding down and the density of the, I'm sorry,
That's okay.
getting the words delusions.
Hmm.
Could you say that part?
Which part again?
The
Habits.
part,
About habits? You must purify, cure, grind down, or brush away all the tendencies you have fabricated into apparent habits.
so I've been thinking about that, and then I was just imagining or drawing a parallel to how that's like taking a grain and processing it, and the result is food.
Food, yeah. Processing grain into food.
I'm really attracted to the part that says wander into the circle of wonder instead of it's not walk directly or even walk knowingly. It's a very specific
It's like,
word.
oh.
Wander. Yeah.
That's what I think of. It's like, whoa, where am I?
This is pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's like wander and wonder together.
Wander and wander together.
Yeah.
Their song, I wander as I wonder. Wander. I love that word. Especially since we're such a culture of like, boom, get there, point A to point B, and we don't really respect wandering or being slow or, having, doing nothing, all those kinds of things, we don't really respect that.
It feels like that wandering kind of plays back to the non-mind too. It's like you're not like walking with a direction in mind. You're just moving.
Yeah, just moving. No place to go, nothing to do.
Like that's what this practice is about. Isn't directly going. It's missing the point. And then it's called the practice.
Yeah, like if you have a place you think you're going to go, we always talk about Zen is good for nothing and those kinds of things.
Thank goodness.
Why am I? Yeah.
I appreciated the, maybe not verbatim, harmonization of Dharma and mind, Dharma's and mind.
Yeah, very naturally, mind and dharmas emerge and harmonize.
I have been watching the flies buzzing, and it's subtly harmonious.
They're just doing their thing. They're just doing their thing. We don't like it so much because they're kind of annoying, but they're just doing their thing. And they don't have any concern whatsoever for what we're doing because we're just doing our thing.
There was a part about
just sitting mindlessly, and then the words that guide the assembly come out. The part was like, how does that happen?
Oh, how does that happen? Yeah, you mean enacting and fulfilling the way of non-mind, finally you can rest, proceeding as you are able to guide the assembly, that part?
Yeah.
Oh, that, proceed not as you are able, although that could be too. Proceeding you are able, but, maybe as you are able would work also. Sort of put that in there. It's like, hey, that's just where my mind is at the moment, as I am able at the moment.
It's like when we're too engaged with the mind, we're really not fit to guide ourselves or others. But once we
Too engaged with the mind, yeah, overthink it. That's one of my challenges, which is why I ended up with this dog, because I didn't overthink it. Yeah. What about some of these maybe some of these more mysterious, perhaps? The whole affair functions without leaving traces and mirrors without obscurations. I mean, we talk about realization continues on a thread. I think Dogen talks a lot about not leaving any trace. I can't remember the exact quotes, of course, but the point is not to quote him today, but sort of like, I think I hark back to that line, one of the lines in Dogen, again, not quoting it exactly, but, the birds are just flying in the air and the fish are just swimming in the water, no trace left behind. I don't know how that resonates with folks, or I think part of what occurs to me also is we want to leave behind things.
Right.
Humans want to do that. We don't want to be forgotten. We leave behind our buildings and our books and our stuff. And I was looking at all my stuff this morning going, I wonder what's going to happen to all this. What are my kids going to do with it? I'm thinking, okay, donate that to the Zendo yard sale, that to the Zendo yard sale. Yeah. So, sell what you can, hoard the rest of it if you like. It's just like thinking about, we want to leave things behind.
Isn't all that stuff technically you though, on a level? Like everything is the self,
All that stuff.
all your
me.
belongings,
Well, I'd like to think so.
everything. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah. I suppose, yeah.
It reminds me about our mind's tendency to grasp onto things
Mm-hmm.
and to try to halt the flow of life and to make things permanent when they can't be.
Right, make it stay put.
Right.
Make it stay put.
Each moment just like recycles itself seamlessly into the next moment, leaving nothing. There's nothing from the previous moment that's like the detritus of that moment.
Yeah, I mean, we can't even, I mean,
Yeah,
like,
there's
as we're
nothing.
talking, there's like nothing to grab
You
onto.
could teach that to my dog, please. That'd be great.
To teach your dog?
They put, yeah.
Yeah, well,
Husky.
yeah, stay put.
I also like the mirror part. Like I think of, people as mirrors for myself, and then to think that if I can be present myself with no mind, that I can be a mirror for myself in a way that is unobstructed, like I said, from all the biases and habits I have.
And those are endless, right? They're just endless.
Well, so is clarity.
Yeah, I mean, I just think about, I think, the clear example for me is when you haven't seen family for a while and then you see family and then boom, you fall into every old pattern you've ever used in your life. And so.
Comes to my mind in association with what I said earlier was that the harmonization of reality is totally interwoven with the transparency and non-abiding reality, and the pathway of birds is total empty sky, and they're only possible because they're totally fluid and not stuck on the way.
What would it be like to live like that? Maybe that's why we envy birds so much. And having been wanting to fly for so long, except when we fly, it's not anywhere close to how birds fly.
We want to brag about that.
Yeah, we want to brag. I know they're just like, what? This is just what we do. They're just doing their thing, like the fly. The fly. I mean, I kind of, you can kind of envy flies too, right? Or I always go back to the Robin Wall Kimmerer saying that she envies photosynthesis. I say, would that be cool to just make your own food from sunlight? So.
Maybe it's our delusion that we leave behind anything. It's just like a kind of reorientation to like the idea that we're traveling like that as well.
Yeah.
We all kind of perceive and make up this story that stuff's happening. It's really just our own delusion.
Yeah,
We're trying
really.
to grasp onto something.
What would it be like if we didn't make up any
unknown.
stories at all and not grasp at anything? What would we probably just eat, sleep, procreate? I don't know. I don't know.
It's got a bumper sticker.
Eat, sleep, procreate.
Be for the sake of being.
Yeah, being for the sake of being.
But it seems if you dealt with the passing of family members, parents or siblings, things are left behind.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sure.
Things
Yeah.
and emotions and feelings.
Oh,
and
sure.
Memories.
Yeah, yeah.
So we do leave.
And then what do we do with them, I suppose, is the other piece of it. What do we do with them?
But those things have no substantial self-existence within themselves.
They don't.
We attach all of everything that they are comprised of is all something that we put onto them. And I agree that there is this feeling that something is there, because it is. We live in both like the relative world where there is and the absolute world where there isn't. And I feel that very intimately, that things are left behind, but at the same time I recognize that what is left behind is ultimately my perception of what's left behind, and it doesn't have any real ground to stand on.
Indeed, these kinds of conversations make me feel, it depends upon the amount of neurotransmitters circulating in my brain at any given point. But these kinds of conversations sometimes make me feel like my feet are in cement. I cannot reach the abstract heights that you often in this group reach.
That's okay.
And it is okay, because
It's
I'm
totally
feeling
okay.
it. My feet are in cement, and who knows what's going on in my brain. But nevertheless, I am here today. I'm vertical, and I'm sitting in this chair.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I think I think what I think of when you talk about things that are left behind, like feelings and stuff and memories and emotions and all that kind of stuff, is they're there, but they're not going to stay there just as they are. They'll change and move and flow over time. They might get stronger. They might not be. So I mean, just as an example, I mean, my sister and I, whom I haven't seen for very many years, had lunch on Friday. She lives in Northern California, and I was just leaving Ashland, so we met for lunch. And my mother has been dead for a little over 9 years, and of course, we're talking about her as though she's sitting with us. All these things that have happened, memories, bad things, good things, because she's still very much alive in both of us at that moment. But, then it's like, yeah, okay, so that's okay. That's okay. It's not like I have to forget about her, but how do I integrate the experience of her and in the end, we were just hoping that she could find healing wherever she is. So. But, it is interesting, but it is just to know that, just to know that that's part of the experience. It's not to judge it or say it's good or bad or that you should or shouldn't feel it,
Right, and whatever you feel at this moment, and you think at this moment, it's fleeting. I mean, it's
Absolutely.
the constant ebb and the constant.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of like being swept along, in a moving body of water, and finding some comfort level with that.
Yeah.
I don't see any cement, Mariah.
No.
I was just going to say, I think you got. I think you pulled it. If you were in cement, you pulled them out. Or the cement's just wet. You can wiggle around in it. Wet cement. Just images of leaves on cement and dog prints on cement and children's handprints on cement. I always like some lines where they talk about birth and death. And so in this field, birth and death do not appear. And I always think, well, yeah, they do clearly appear. People are born and people die every day. But how does that strike people? Birth and death do not appear, or no birth, no death. I know Shanae talked a lot about this in her stuff on the Avatamsaka Sutra, but how does that strike people? Birth and death do not appear, or they don't exist, or
Hard to swallow.
yeah, it is.
Well, I mean, everything is derived from the same fundamental, energy that comprises everything, and different equanimous, identity and characterization. So like it's like birth and death is just it's like everything's made out of the same universal ball of clay energy, and it seems like we're born, but it's just a mixture of all these different forms of energies in a manner of which creates working systems and subsystems that work together to create the function of DNA and the cell and the womb and the child and offspring, like in all the process that it is all these things intermingled to make it provides the believable appearance of birth and death and form and all that stuff, but it's really just, I mean, inside the atom is mostly empty space they found.
Yeah. Well, I guess I think one way to look at it is that, birth and death are concepts that we have to make sense of what's happening in our conventional reality, but things are just always changing. They're just always transforming from one thing to another. And, before my birth, I don't know what I was. After my death, I don't know what I'll be. I'll be something, maybe, or maybe I'll be nothing. I have no idea. But, things will be transformed, and life will definitely go on with or without me. So.
To me, that gives me as much peace and comfort as the thought of heaven, knowing that my energy is going to be going to do something else.
Yeah, your energy is going to be going to do something else. That's one way to look at it.
Feels like one of those boundaries that we create to make sense of the world. But if you look closely enough, it's like trying to look at the boundary that separates one being from another. If you look closely enough, you can't really see it. Like where does something begin and then the other thing begin? Where do we begin and where do we end? And just like your conversation with your sister, it's like, 9 years later, your mother in a way is still alive.
Oh yeah.
The idea, you can give an idea to somebody.
Sure.
And that lives on, and that also transcends the boundary between that one person and the other, because that idea has interpenetrated the other person.
Right.
I mean, if there are infinite present moments and birth is just one moment, there's no beginning, it's just is at a point, and then it's not like, I don't know, there's no transition when there's birth and death happens, so there's no creation of it, it's just there it is and there it's not.
There it is and there it's not. Yeah, I don't mean to sound, if people take this as morbid, I don't mean it that way, but I've been present at a lot of deaths at the hospital. I work as a hospital chaplain. I've been present at a lot of deaths. And it's always interesting to watch somebody take what we think of their final breaths, because they'll stop, and you're kind of like, okay, are you dead? Then they go, and I can't even do it because of my lungs, but they take a huge breath. And then they stop again. And they take another huge breath. And then, they just they might continue like this for a few minutes. And so, there was one time when I came in where the nurse said, okay, I think he's gone. And then the guy did that like 2 minutes later, and so it's just kind of interesting. And then there's this whole sort of point, like, when is the person really gone, And they're not, they're just kind of, it's very, very interesting. Very interesting, that whole process.
You could probably ask the same question at the other end.
Absolutely, you sure absolutely can. You absolutely can. You can absolutely ask the other question at the end. I mean, I've only been present as an observer at one birth, which was that of my granddaughter, you know, and just, you know, watching her emerge, and that like, when is that moment when her life outside of her mother began? You know, it was hard, it was really, you couldn't pinpoint it. Or has it, yeah, I don't know, you know. You know, I don't know, so it's just very, very interesting to just kind of contemplate some of that. Yeah.
This is the field that we exist in.
Mm-hmm.
This conversation about all the pictures, but I always try to hold in my mind, and the cosmos is a very large place, and that it's very likely that whatever we conceive about it
Mm-hmm.
can't possibly actually be what it is. You know, there are multi-universes.
Right.
I don't know about time or concept of time. It's
Right.
very much grounded in this field that we exist in. But keeping that, and that is part of Buddhist tradition, is just holding that,
Mm-hmm.
don't know mind,
Yeah.
you know, and remaining in that zone, to me, is possible.
Mm-hmm.
Though it's a very, don't know. You know,
Yeah.
that is,
Yeah.
It's part of wonder.
Yeah, it's part of wonder. Yeah, I mean, I think that's my favorite line in this whole thing is wander into the center of the circle of wonder. You know, we don't really talk about that very much. You know, I mean, somebody was telling me, I was just at this retreat for forest bathing, and someone was talking about, you have to read this book about awe. I'm like, why do we need a book about awe? I mean, can we just remember that we can express awe for things? I mean, even just this rain right now, or the, you know, the way that the water drips off, of that that tent covering thing, you know, how water moves, all of that.
I'm wondering with something like awe, in order to actually experience awe, you have to at least momentarily take the emphasis off of yourself.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
And which is like, sometimes it seems like, you know, almost an
It's
impossibility.
impossible, yeah. Or step out of the rational brain. It's like, oh, well, that's just because of X, Y, and Z.
Mm.
And we forget about the just the beauty of it.
The no birth, no death that you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I read TikTok Khan a little while back. He was just talking, he was going, it's such a relief not to be afraid of death. He goes, really, it's like he's finally saying, it's just like, it's such a relief.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is a relief.
But, you know, the no birth and no death seems to be able to embody that thought.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, I get somebody like Isaac Asimov could explain it to you. Well, you see, it's like we're all just, you know, we're all stardust, and we're intermingling. We all have a little bit of
Sure.
you know, Plato in us. Whatever.
Right,
You know, you can think that way theoretically, but but your ego's going, no. You know, what about me? You know?
What about me?
You know, it's that ultimate in you know, the ultimate in the day-to-day existence just sometimes seem like a million miles apart,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not.
It's so easy to get caught up in stuff. That's why I wanted to imagine the campfire of the caravanners, you know, just kind of like, you know, what was their life like? They didn't have, I mean, they had their own problems, to be sure, but they didn't live the way we do, you know. So, yeah.
My oldest friend in the world now, she was a nurse for many years in intensive care. And she had said long ago, she saw so many people die over the years.
Mm-hmm.
She has never seen anyone fearful of dying at the moment of death. And she felt there was some kind of a calmness that came over you, which is kind of comforting.
That's comforting too, yeah. Of course, a lot of people now are on morphine, but you know. So.
Somebody hear that quote by Daniel Ellsberg yesterday on the radio?
No.
He's 97. Did he pass?
He did. He was 92, I think, but anyway,
he
whatever. He was 90 something.
He was saying something to the point, he goes, if I would have known it was this enjoyable, I would have done it a long time ago. And I've never heard anybody say that.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. Yeah.
I was having a play date a few days ago with a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And the 6-year-old was exploring the back of my hand
Uh-huh.
with some kind of awe.
Yeah.
Oh, you know,
oh.
Look at the wrinkles and veins.
This is what happens when you get old. You get hands are like this. My mothers look like this.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
grandmothers look like this. And your grandmother, your grandmother's hands will look like this someday, and so will your mother's. And when you're old, you will too. And she said, "Old? I can't even imagine being big."
Yeah. That's so sweet. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing about little children. My granddaughter used to play with this little. I had this, prominent collarbone dent. She always used to put grapes in it and stuff like that. My little bowl. But yeah, I mean that's really awe. I mean, I don't want to dwell on it too much. But when Eulalie used to take me for walks, we'd probably get 10 steps in an hour because she would stop and look at every little thing on the ground, and to her it was amazing. To even just to see a stick in the gutter, and we just we forget to appreciate just that simplicity. Or a ladybug, we'd watch a ladybug for quite a while and all of that kind of stuff. So that's what I mean about, you're right, we have to forget ourselves, but we can, if we just take the time to look, awe is all around us.
Sometimes I like taking a magnifying glass into the garden. Sometimes you'll be sitting there and have you ever been reading a book and the smallest bug you've ever,
the teeny
you've ever
tiniest.
almost not seen in your life, right on the page, and you're going, oh, I don't want to shut the page. What am I going to do with it? This little bug. But I've taken a magnifying glass and I saw some really small bugs, and I have this magnifying glass that has a magnifying glass on the inside of it that blows it up even bigger.
Yeah.
And I looked at this invisible bug, and it was standing there, and it had antennas and these big eyes and a big smile.
Finally, somebody noticed me.
He wasn't even afraid of me. I mean, hi. Finally saw me.
His whole world, the bug's whole world. I don't know if it's
Amazing.
That page on that book is this entire ocean.
Talking about things you don't normally see.
Yeah, so I wrote some of the things down that you all said because I thought I would share them at the end, just kind of as our response to Hongzhi. I don't know how well this will pull off, but we'll give it a go. Could they really not have known anything about anything? Could we really not know anything about anything? Great bright field, grind down, offer an orange, experience wonderment. Enacting non-mind, finally you can rest in that innermost open space. Grinding down, grain becomes food. Wander into that circle, just move. No place to go, nothing to do. We all have a tendency to overthink. Can we just experience each moment just as it is? Totally fluid, not stuck. Not stuck in wet cement or dry cement. How can we let go of a perception of boundaries? Where does something have a beginning and an end? It's such a relief.
That's better than the original text.
Can I take a picture of that?
You can read my handwriting, it's pretty spread.
That's amazing.